So today I'm going to show you how to use ExpressTrade as a payment provider for depositing and withdrawing money from maybe like an account or something or whatever. It's just how you're going to use it. I'm just going to show you how to do the trade side of it, sending the trade out and do stuff like that. So let's just see. Last time we made a retrieve inventory function. This time we're going to first create a deposit function. So let's say process deposit equals function, and it's going to be a Steam ID and it's going to be a range of items. So let's say items. Okay, but you have to keep in mind when you are processing a deposit, you only want to be adding the items to the trade if the items are actually in his inventory, because the way ExpressTrade handles the items, the items array is usually an array of integers, and they can also use integers from our inventory, and ExpressTrade will then add that to the trade, and they would be able to get items from us. Well, they shouldn't be able to. So we have to validate someone's inventory first and check if all the items that were given are actually in the inventory of the Steam ID. So we're just gonna write a function for that as well. So let's say for validate inventory equals function Steam ID and the items. We can use the retrieve function then. But first let's create another promise, because we are using a promise. So, okay. So let's then say retrieve inventory of the Steam ID, the Steam ID that someone has given us, and then make a function, and it's gonna have a response and catch function for error handling. So if there's an error, we're just gonna say reject the current promise and log the error, or log the error, yeah. Now what we want to do is items are given as a string, and we are going to have to check them using a array. So we're going to try and convert the items to an array, and we can do that using parsing of JSON. So just JSON parse, and then this should do it, plus items, and this should create us an array, should convert the string into an array. So then we have the items of the inventory. So the inventory items that are received by the retrieve inventory function is going to be the response dot items. And so what we're going to have to do now is we are going to have to see if the items match with the inventory items. So to do that, we can create an array, call it something like the inventory IDs. So we're going to convert these items into an array of IDs. We can then just do that by looping over them with a for each loop or something. Function item inventory IDs dot push item dot ID. And if you want to see all the uses for item, you can go to the GitHub again and just go to the item standard item object, and this is the object that gets returned, and we are going to get the item ID. So just standard item object and then the ID. So it's going to be item.id. And now found this very neat function online. I'll leave it in the description, which is going to be this function. This is pretty much comparing an array to another array, and that's what we want. We want to see if the contents of the inventory IDs are in its actual inventory. So what we then can do is if compare inventory IDs with the with the items, the given items, we can then say reject, because they do not compare, they do not match up. I can say inventory did not match up, something like that, or just figure something out. And if the inventory was successfully validated, we're just gonna resolve the array. So now what we can do is we can validate the inventory of the user. Then it's not gonna be in output. Oh, let me just validate the input of the user and then catch it with an error. And oh, also we're gonna use some promise for this, return new. Okay, so if the inventory successfully validates, we're gonna do stuff, and if it doesn't, we're gonna reject the promise and spit out an error. So now, if it has successfully validated, we have to send out the deposit, and to do that we can call the and then the iTrade, and then call the send offer to Steam ID function, and this requires an input of a Steam ID, which is just gonna be the one we get from the response, and an input of items. I think we can just call items. I think should work. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll find out soon enough. It's just gonna have a mutable response. If body.status it doesn't equal 1, reject body.message like we did earlier. And if it does, we're just gonna resolve the promise with the trade return. So the trade here is sent out, so that should work. The last thing we now have to do is add it to our module.exports and just quickly go over what we've done. So when the process deposit function is called, it's gonna have a promise, and if the inventory successfully validates, we're gonna send out the trade offer, and if it doesn't, we're gonna spit out an error. So to do this, we can pretty much use the same route. So let's just change this into process deposit, have a Steam ID, and then have the items, and then we can call trades.process deposit the same thing, Steam ID and the items. Let's see, does that work? Yeah, that works. And then we're going to rest.send the callback, add callback here, and if it returns an error, we're going to do the same thing again, rest.send, create an object, error, and show the error. So now this should work. So let's see if we restart the server. No, not server app.js. Okay, so there we go. And now let's see what our endpoint was. So now if we call process deposit with the Steam ID, and then we will need an array of items like so, but because I do not know the item ID, we cannot send it. But let me just show you this first. It's gonna say an error because this 1, 2, 3 item is not in our inventory, which is correct. We don't have an item with an ID of 1, 2, 3 or 38182. But we have created the retrieve inventory function. So let's just call that retrieve inventory. Now it's going to show you this item, and it's going to show us the ID. This is the one we need to send out the deposit. So if I were now to send a deposit to myself, it will say I cannot send trade to myself because I am the bot, so it wouldn't really work. But for you, it would work just fine if you use another account for your bot. But I can't because I only have one account right now. But okay, so let's say the deposit was accepted after the trade was sent. We would have to know that for on our server, and we can actually do that. So to do that, we will need to write a event, which is also given by the ExpressTrade API or npm. So let's say first, this is just offer received offer. So if an offer is received, we are going to cancel it because we don't want to get any offers. And now if an offer is accepted, we actually want to check if it is a deposit, and if it is a deposit, we are going to credit our users, at least if you want to do that. So we can check if it's a deposit by checking if the items of the recipient or recipient, I don't know, if they are more than 0, it should be a deposit. So this should be a deposit. Okay, so now the trade was accepted and it was a deposit. So now you can detect what user it was by doing, I think, offer.recipient.steam ID or something. As I said earlier, it's all listed here. It's all listed on the OP skins thing. But here you should do whatever you want with your application. That's pretty much how the deposit function works.